Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today I'm going to be reviewing Boosh, Blade of Dream, singular dream, not dreams. This is book 2 of the Kithamar Trilogy by Daniel Abraham. First off, I want to say thank you to the author and to the publisher for the early copy in exchange for an honest review, and I, again, can honestly say that this book was fantastic. So, without wasting any more time,
Let's get down to business.
let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts on this second book. Now, I have plenty to say about this book, and I have, since reading this book, had a conversation with the author that will be up on my channel after this book releases. This book comes out on the 18th of July. Go ahead and pre-order that beast, especially if you read Age of Ash and liked it. And if you read Age of Ash and did not like it, I strongly encourage you to give this one a shot as well. There's a lot to like in this one that builds off of Age of Ash, and especially if the characters in Age of Ash were not really your thing, I enjoyed the characters in Blade of Dream even more. But as I was saying, talking with the author, he gave me insight into some of what went into this and his thoughts and on what this book is about and some of the themes. So I will, if I mention what he said, I will say that it's his, so I'm not passing off his opinion as mine. But I'll mostly be talking about the stuff that I found in it, and he just illuminated some of the points that I didn't see or stuff that I had already thought about, and it's absolutely wonderful. Please look forward to seeing my review with Daniel Abraham, especially if you've read Long Price Quartet, Dagger and Coin, and this series. It'll be marked with spoilers in appropriate locations, whatever. So if you're unaware, the conceit of the Kithamar Trilogy is a single event, and that is the death of the prince. This happens in the prologue. In the prologue, we are at a funeral procession for the Prince of Kithamar, who has died somehow. And he was only prince for a year, and it is these events viewed from 3 different lenses. And so the prologue is the funeral procession. The prologue is almost word for word the same as the prologue of Age of Ash. And then it goes into the events of the past year of Burn al-Sal, the reigning prince up until his death. Blade of Dream starts slightly before. It covers the same period as Age of Ash, but it starts slightly before and it ends slightly after. So if you read Age of Ash, you can see how the events of Age of Ash, there's some resolution for those things that were not quite resolved in Age of Ash, and how things began, you can kind of see the genesis for that as well. Now, interestingly, according to Daniel Abraham himself, you could start with this one. If you haven't read Age of Ash, you can start with this one. The difference is that it's going to spoil some stuff that happens in Age of Ash, and Age of Ash will spoil some stuff that happens in this one. Like, there's some stuff that I knew was going to happen in this because of Age of Ash. So it really just depends on what you kind of want spoiled, where you want it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I asked him if you could start with this one because I do think it is a starting place. I personally would start with Age of Ash just for the slower build with some kind of things that end up getting revealed, but you certainly can start with this one if you want. So where Age of Ash dealt with the port of the city, Long Hill and Elise and Samish, and the absolute destitute and impoverished and dirty, filthy part of Kithamar, Blade of Dream deals with the upper crust, the merchant class, and the aristocratic class. So it takes place in Green Hill. Much, much, much more in Green Hill than in Long Hill. And so our 2 main characters in this one are Elaine, the princess, and Gareth Left, the eldest scion of one of the merchant houses. And if you've read Age of Ash, you have heard of and seen both of these particular characters, albeit minor ones, in Age of Ash. And just from the beginning, I liked the characters in this second book much better than the first one, and part of it is just Elise's journey is just a drag. It's a tragedy, and it's just much heavier than in this book. And Abraham himself says that book 2 is a love story, and not necessarily a romance, but it is a love story. Everyone is experiencing their own kind of love story, whether it's platonic, familial, romantic, and I didn't think of that, but it totally is. And just the vibe of this book is significantly less oppressive than the vibe of Age of Ash. And again, right off the bat, he endears you to both of these characters because I have said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it forever, as long as I am reading Daniel Abraham books, Abraham does these small, intimate human moments, these human gestures, these things that just people do. I think he writes real people better than I can't think of any other fantasy authors that do it as well as he does. They are absolutely human. They are young, and so they make immature decisions. There's an immaturity about them that has them make dangerous and really selfish decisions, but you absolutely understand why they are making that, because I mean they're teenagers or early 20 somethings, and they're fools. And fools make foolish decisions. That is just what happens. So a lot of this book is about identity and agency, and do you have some choice in your life, in your family's life, in the destiny, in your own destiny, or is everything planned out for you, especially if you're from these aristocratic classes? And so Elaine as princess, we get to see her searching for that agency, because as the princess, when you are involved in the ruling of Kithamar basically is your family. It is first, second, third place in your life, and everything else is a distant fourth and below. The city just takes everything from you. It takes everything in order to run it. She says that the secret of noble blood is that it gives you everything because it costs you everything. Meaning you don't get to have anything else. Like you're noble, congratulations. So much for your personal life, any aspirations you may have had, any dreams that you have, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what you do. This is defined for you by dint of the family that you're born into. And so this is Elaine's struggle throughout most of the book. She longs for something that is hers, anything that is hers that isn't subservient to Kithamar, that isn't subservient to her dad, who is the new prince. Her dad is the prince who is dead in the prologue. So the impetus for her character's journey is trying to find anything that is hers and hers alone, that she doesn't have to share with the city or with her duty. And that drives her to make decisions that, we may or may not agree with. And Gareth, we see, is struggling with this also, because Gareth, as the eldest scion of this merchant family, his mom is always out doing merchant things like making trade deals or whatever, and his dad runs the business, and he is supposed to basically be the second in command and take over the business and get married to someone for a kind of not political alliance, but a mercantile alliance, so that they have better relations with that trade house or whatever. And Gareth also is seeking some kind of agency. His life has also been dictated. He says that policy is policy. This comes all the time. Policy is policy. That is basically the rule of the household. Everything from the household to the business has policy, and that is what you follow. You don't question it, because policy is policy. And so both of them are struggling to find their identity outside of the constraints that their birth has given them. And Abraham here explores how dumb it is, and yet completely understandable, because we have all experienced this, how dumb it is when you're jealous of other people who have stuff that you don't have, even though your life is like better than theirs. Like, you're better off than they are, like objectively, but you still envy what they have. So both of them, like Elaine envies the freedom, or what she feels is the freedom of the people below her who don't have this responsibility to the city, and Gareth's the same thing. All of his friends are guards in the city guard, and he envies the fact that, they get to go on adventures and what he thinks are adventures, and have some camaraderie with their fellow guards, and have some freedom of the city, and don't have to, be beholden to what their dad wants and crap like that. And so they know it's dumb, and they admit to themselves that it's dumb, and yet they look at what these other people have and long for it as well. And we've all done that. Abraham does what he always does in his books, and gives us an insight into the economics of the world, and I love this as well, like the discussion of one accident, like one accident of one shipment, how it can change the fates and the dynamic between the main trading houses, how quickly things can fall apart, what goes into, running a city, the back and forth. It's just a great exploration of that, how the trading houses all hate each other, and yet they all rely on each other. So they trust each other, but only to X degree, and they have to help each other because it benefits all of them, but they can't help anybody too much, because then one person will get too strong, and then they have to band together to bring that house down, whatever. It's just really, really interesting, and it always is when he includes this stuff. Abraham again makes the city feel so alive, like it's its own character in this book, just like in the last one, where in Age of Ash the prose and the descriptions were just very dirty and filthy, like the sections of the city that Elise and Samish are used to seeing. Here, we don't have any of that grime all over the prose, and yet he still makes the city feel alive with its prose. I just highlighted a specific sentence that, I mean, it happens a lot, but here's an example sentence. The barracks yard opened to the south, like a priest glowering at the unclean of Long Hill and Seepwater, and the hospital to the south of the city walls. Just personifying this nicer part of the city as some disapproving priest gazing out on the poorer parts of the city, which also is basically what the guards do as well. He has absolutely exceptional dialogue exchanges in this one. The dialogue is on fire. Like, Abraham's dialogue is already exceptional. Here, some of the best dialogue exchanges that I've read in his books, just really, really good. The dialogue between Gareth and Elaine, it lacks the lame quality of normally written romances. It's just so good as they grapple with their relationship means to each other and means to their futures, etc., etc. It's just it is exceptional. Abraham, it knocks it out of the park with the dialogue. Now, one of the best relationships in this book are the relationships that both Gareth and Elaine have with their respective fathers. I love Elaine's relationship with Byrne, and it just seeing him before he becomes the prince, because his great uncle is currently the prince, and then, you know, he has to take over. But seeing their relationship and seeing how that changes when he himself has to become the prince, and the tolls that being in charge just take on you, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful father-daughter relationship. And what isn't beautiful is the relationship between Gareth and his father, and his younger brother also. His younger brother is the stereotypical younger brother who is always passed over and just isn't quite as good as his older brother. There's a quote from the narrative, his younger brother thinking, the world had illness, injury, accident, and his brother, as if his brother is the fourth horseman of the apocalypse that occupies how horrible life is. Arguably, one of my favorite characters in this is Gareth's dad. What a fascinating character. You want to talk about someone who will do what he has to do for the business. Like, he is just this charming, affable, really charismatic guy who is soft-spoken and yet is just an absolute horrible person. Just a monstrous human being. And no one sees that. Like, no one sees that, because he's just really charming, and he's an excellent businessman, and policy is policy, and he treats his grown sons like they're toddlers. His father put a hand on his shoulder and shook him gently. It could almost have been mistaken for comfort. Read this for nothing, if for nothing else, than for the guards, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and the relationship between Gareth and his dad. Like, if you read it for no other reason, it is incredible. Just, Abraham does a wonderful job with the family dynamics, like, just in general. All the relationships are I just like them so much better in this than in Age of Ash. So the other group of people that are in this one are the guards, and they are wonderful. Captain Sennett is one of my favorite fantasy characters ever now. I love Captain Sennett. Talk about if you have seen Ballister Geist from the Long Price Quartet, talk about someone who is single-minded. There's a lot of single-minded characters in this one, and you can be single-minded without being like one note and one-dimensional. Neither Gareth's dad nor Captain Sennett are like that at all. But my favorite guards outside of the City Watch, right here, hands down. The relationship the guards have with each other, the relationship they have with their commander, Sennett, is just, it is exquisite. Captain Sennett has a speech. It's not really a speech, but he has dialogue with another character in this book that I highlighted and have read so many times over, because it is one of the best exchanges I've ever read in dialogue, because it completely subverts expectation that you have. Like, he's addressing a situation that you've seen in countless media, countless books, and turns it completely on its head, and I wanted to applaud. It was so good. On a side note, I also really like books that have in-world history books. So there's a section in here where, characters are reading books about the history of the world. I really like those in books. That doesn't happen often enough, but so aspiring writers, put that in there. Like, I love that crap. Maybe some people don't, but I love it. So I was listening to Age of Ash to start out with as I was reading this book, and it is so cool to see what is so minor in Age of Ash is a big deal here. It's like it's watching the same thing from two completely different viewpoints. So we've got Age of Ash main characters are here, and the Blade of Dream main characters are here, and different events are of differing levels of importance depending on who's experiencing it. And so I really enjoyed getting to see what I missed that was important in Age of Ash that is important here. I strongly recommend going back and reading Age of Ash either right after or right before you read this one. In fact, this book doesn't come out till the 18th of July. Go ahead and read Age of Ash now, and then you're primed to read Blade of Dream. So we've also got some philosophical themes, some themes about how anything that is eternal, like by eternal, anything that's just really long lasting, anything that lasts and lasts and lasts trends towards evil. And I thought it was a fascinating idea, because when the primary goal, the prime directive is endurance and survival and continued existence, when that is the primary goal, then every other virtue eventually has to fall away. Because if endurance is the number one goal and you have to choose between survival and virtue or morality, you have to choose endurance. If endurance is the ultimate goal, everything else will eventually fall to the wayside. And because all that virtue will fall away, subservient to the goal of endurance, eventually endurance becomes evil, or at the very least, amorality. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. Despite the stakes that are present in this book and in Age of Ash, it's still just human stories. It's just human lives over the course of a year, over the course of the seasons, and how different the poor survive differently in the winter. Then, like, everyone goes through the same snowstorm, as Abraham says. Everyone experiences those same weather events. Everyone lives in this same city, and they're just going about their life. And so I love the juxtaposition between the dire stakes and just the slice of life human elements of this particular story. There's themes of personal responsibility. One of my favorite quotes from here is, we have all heard a character say, "I did what I had to do." And, people are like, "Yeah, I get it." Like, here we've got an "I did what I had to do," which is responded with a different character saying, "You did what you picked." And that is completely true. This happens all the time with my students. Or I do it too. We all do this, where I'll say, "Oh, I didn't have time to do that." Well, yeah, I did. I just did all this other stuff instead. Very rarely did I really not have time because of many, many actual necessary things that I did that I didn't have time for this thing. Students are all the time, "Well, I didn't have a chance to study." Well, yeah, but what'd you do like the 3 days before? Oh, you binge watched 14 seasons of Vampire Diaries? Oh, okay. Like that. I mean, you did what you picked, right? And also, there's this really tragic, bittersweet idea about expectation, and about how the reason that we experience such bitter disappointment in our lives is because we allow our hopes to manifest as if they've already happened. So our hopes and dreams and goals, there's nothing wrong with having those, but we're so incredibly disappointed because we start acting as if we have already reached those. And, the bitter pill of expectation and not having those expectations met, as someone on the spectrum with Asperger's, I understand all about unmet expectations. That's why, most of my brain power goes to processing what the expectations are going to be for whatever particular thing I'm going to do, so that I don't have to deal with the crushing disappointment of unmet expectations. Before wrapping it up, I just want to read some quotes that I just really love from this. "And who's not a fool? Who gets from the birthing chair to the grave with dignity? What prize do the gods hand out to people who never let themselves care about anything enough to be disappointed by the loss? Look around you. Everyone who laughs at you or cringes away, they're all thinking of some time when it was them. Some race they ran and came in last, someone they wooed who didn't want them, some moment of glory they reached for and wound up with an empty hand for the trouble. We're all fools, everyone. That's why we hate fools so much. They're the echoes of when we were vulnerable in front of the world ourselves, and that's hard for us to forgive." Word. And there are many more quotes. You should read it, but that was one of my favorite. I don't want to read any of the dialogue exchanges, but it's just fabulous. I am so excited to see where the third one goes. I have been given some hints on who will be in it and what some POVs we'll get. And this definitely wraps up and some of the loose threads at the end of Age of Ash, but there are still some that have yet to be resolved, and that is what I'm excited about. The full picture that Abraham is painting here, we've now got 2/3 of it, and I can't wait for the next one to come out. So, this book is fantastic. I think it is a step up even from Age of Ash. If you loved Elise and Samus, you might not actually, maybe you won't like this one as much. Maybe it just depends on which character set that you like, but the tapestry that Abraham is weaving here, it's absolutely wonderful. And I know, like, the people complain about Age of Ash that it's slow, and guys, I don't know what you want. Just trust me, the payoff is worth it. I'm sorry there's not a whole bunch of action going on. Enjoy the human element, especially if you're a character reader. Don't sit here and tell me that, oh, I just really love characters, and oh, I'm fine with slow paced. I love characters, and then sit here and tell me that, oh, well, Age of Ash was slow. Oh, okay, you're not a character reader. Like, I don't believe you anymore. So, having freshly insulted you, please go buy this book and read it. Everyone should go pre-order this book. They should go buy it and, help the author out. Tell Orbit that we like Daniel Abraham writing solo fantasy. Please. It is a good thing that you can do for the world here. Guys, I love this book. Loved it. Cannot wait for the third book to come out. So guys, are you excited for this one? Have you read Age of Ash? Are you pumped to see how things are developed in this one? So good. Guys, so good. Guys, that is it for me for today. Thank you again so much to the author and to the publisher for the advance copy. This comes out July 18th. I'll put a place to pre-order it down in the description. That's all for me for today. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.